Okay, step out of the light and into the shadows with me for just a moment. Today, we're diving into an explainer on a story that honestly plays out exactly like a pitch-black psychological thriller. But the crazy thing is, every single chilling detail of this descent is entirely real.
I want you to really imagine something for a second. You're living a life of just absolute untouchable luxury. Money, power, massive influence. That's just your everyday reality, right? And then, in a single, violent flash, you are dragged away from all that safety and thrown into a pitch-black closet. So the question is, how far can your mind bend under that kind of sheer terror before it completely snaps?
Section 1. The Berkeley Abduction. February 4th, 1974. Picture a totally quiet evening in Berkeley, California. You've got 19-year-old newspaper heiress Patty Hearst just relaxing with her fiancé. But then, heavy knocking completely shatters the peace. Armed extremists burst right through the door. They beat her fiancé unconscious, and they drag a screaming Patty into the trunk of a waiting car, just vanishing into the night.
Now, the lingering question here is, why her? Well, the group behind this was the Symbionese Liberation Army, the SLA, and they were driven by this intense anti-capitalist radical extremism. But here's the thing. They didn't just want some quiet, under-the-table cash ransom. No, they wanted public theater. Their ultimate goal was to publicly humiliate the incredibly wealthy Hearst family, basically forcing them to buy millions of dollars worth of food for California's poor.
And what follows is just a terrifyingly rapid descent. Look at this timeline. In February 1974, she's a wealthy heiress. By March, she's a desperate hostage trapped in total isolation. And by April, literally just 2 months later, she emerges as an urban guerrilla going by the name Tania. I mean, think about that. It took less than 60 days to completely erase and then totally rewrite a human life.
Section 2. Inside the Dark Closet, the psychological breakdown. To even begin to understand this terrifying transformation, we really have to look at what happened in the dark. For 57 agonizing days, Patty was locked inside a tiny, cramped closet, blindfolded, completely severed from the reality she once knew. The SLA systematically dismantled her identity using this horrific, highly calculated loop. Just imagine enduring this for a second, day after day of pitch darkness and severe sleep deprivation, constant whispered threats of execution. You've got her captors feeding her these false claims that her family had completely abandoned her. And then, here's the really twisted part, they'd introduce small, calculated acts of kindness, just a little sip of water, a brief conversation, a tiny sliver of light.
You see, when the human brain is completely stripped of all safety and control, it adapts in extraordinary and, honestly, deeply disturbing ways, just to survive. This is the very essence of Stockholm Syndrome. In the pitch black, desperate to just stay alive, the mind actually stops seeing monsters, and it starts seeing saviors.
Section 3. The Birth of Tania. A chilling transformation. So 2 months into this massive FBI search, audiotapes were suddenly delivered to the media. The whole world kind of braced itself, right? They expected to hear the weeping pleas of a broken hostage, but what they actually heard? Well, it sent a collective shiver right down the spine of the entire nation.
The sheer contrast of that audio tape was absolutely staggering. Patty's voice wasn't trembling at all. It was cold, it was calm. She publicly renounced her family, her vast inheritance, her entire past. She announced she was taking on the moniker Tania, inspired by a comrade of Che Guevara, and she pledged her total dedication to the violent, radical rebellion of the exact same people who stole her in the night. It's just wild. Section 4. Victim or terrorist. The Hibernia Bank Robbery. Let's plunge right into the stark reality of April 15, 1974. On this day, the entire narrative completely fractured. This was no longer just some tragic kidnapping case. In an instant, it became a full-blown, active domestic terrorism investigation.
The undeniable facts of this moment changed absolutely everything. Security cameras rolling inside San Francisco's Hibernia Bank captured this seemingly impossible scene. You have Patty Hearst, front and center, wielding an assault rifle, shouting authoritative orders at terrified bank customers. Now, we really have to look at this impartially and ask ourselves, was she pointing that rifle because she was under this agonizing, invisible threat of death? Or was she fueled by the dark adrenaline and newfound purpose of a radical life?
Section 5.
Life as a fugitive. 19 months in the shadows. Following that robbery, the heiress literally vanished into the criminal underworld. For over a year, she dodged federal authorities, constantly slipping through the grasp of the law and sinking deeper and deeper into a hidden, violent world.
Her actions in that underworld, they only deepened the mystery. She was traveling using aliases, hiding out in heavily fortified safe houses. She even participated in shoplifting and other underground operations. And here is a super notable point. When 6 key SLA members died in this massive fiery shootout with Los Angeles police back in May 1974, Patty wasn't there. She survived, and she made the active choice to stay with the surviving members and just keep running.
Well, the run finally ended in September 1975, when FBI agents tracked her down to an apartment in San Francisco. But honestly, the most chilling detail of her capture wasn't the arrest itself. It was the paperwork. When she was booked into jail, they asked for her occupation. She didn't say student. She didn't say heiress. She calmly listed 2 very specific words: urban guerrilla.
Section 6. The Trial of the Century. The Human Mind on the Stand. In 1976, this whole dark saga moved straight into the courtroom. It became a media spectacle unlike anything else at the time. But really, if you think about it, it wasn't just Patty Hearst on trial here. It was the absolute mystery of human identity itself being placed directly in front of a jury.
So we're looking at 2 completely dueling narratives that really defined the case. On one side, Side A, you have celebrated defense attorney F. Lee Bailey arguing the theory of a thoroughly broken mind. He stated she was a tragic victim of severe brainwashing, extreme coercion, and incredibly deep post-traumatic stress. But then, over on Side B, you have prosecutor James L. Browning Jr. presenting a theory of deliberate choice. He pointed out multiple missed opportunities where Patty could have easily escaped during her 19 months on the run, but actively chose not to.
7 years in federal prison. That was the sentence handed down for armed bank robbery. Ultimately, the jury just refused to excuse her actions as mere involuntary survival behavior. They looked at all the evidence, and they held her legally accountable.
But of course, a story like this doesn't cleanly end with the strike of a gavel. The aftermath was entirely fractured. Patty ended up serving nearly 22 months of that sentence, before President Jimmy Carter actually commuted it in 1979. And then decades later, she was granted a full pardon by President Bill Clinton. Yet despite those massive executive interventions, public opinion remains permanently divided. Society as a whole, we never truly agreed on her guilt.
Which brings us to the final, incredibly unsettling unknown of this entire saga. Was she a victim whose mind was completely shattered in the dark? Or was she a survivor who made a deliberate, calculated choice to become the very thing she once feared? Honestly, I'm going to leave you to grapple with that.